Hey, everybody, it's Scott Steen, the lead handicapper at WinnersandWhiners.com, coming to you with the Thursday edition of Winners and Whiners Radio. And I am joined, as always, by my capable and handsome co-host. He is the one, the only. He is the senior handicapper at Winners and Whiners, and he is Scott Reichel. Scotty, what's up?
Nothing much. Islanders battled from the brink. I'll tell you that much. It did not look good.
How about those Islanders?
Did not look good, but they ended up rallying from down 2-0, ended up forcing a Game 7. And then the fans threw beer on the ice, which I found kind of interesting, but I didn't really care. It was a great time. I wish I was there, but hopefully they'll win Game 7, and I'll go to a couple of cup games.
Do they still throw squids on the ice, Scott?
That was in Detroit. And
yeah. Does that
Nashville,
still happen?
I believe, has the catfish thing.
Here's my question. How do you bring those in? Who just brings a squid to each game just in case there's a hat trick?
It's a very, very good question. I don't know.
I don't know how that works, because you'd see, not hundreds of them, but you'd see, 10, 20 squid come out, and you're like, where you been keeping the squid? I don't know.
You got the hot dog vendor, you got the wet teddy bear vendor on those Liberty Mutual commercials, and you got the squid vendor.
Dead squid. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us here on Winners and Whiners Radio. It is Thursday, of course. Winners and Whiners Radio, if you don't know, we have one simple motto. Give us an hour, and we'll give you the winners. That's the trade that we make with you each and every day. And if you don't know about WinnersandWhiners.com, they are our title sponsor. WinnersandWhiners.com is the #1 site in the world for predictive sports analysis. Make sure you stop by and check them out each and every day, especially if you're looking for the latest updates on weather, injury news, and line movements, all the stuff you should be looking at before you make your final decision about what to play. There is no better spot to find that info than WinnersandWhiners.com. Full previews and predictions into every game every single day. And the best part is it is always 100% free. So with that being said, Scott, let's just jump right in. We got a lot to get to today. We've got some interesting topics to talk about. And we also have our Bet the Farm play. It's going to be an interesting one. It is going to be a kind of play that we don't do a lot of. It's a chance for you to make over $13 for every $10 that you spend. It's a plus value play. We're pretty excited about it. So we'll be getting to that here before too long. Before we get to all that, time to start the show, as we always do, with the good news and the bad news. The people that took it in the shorts, people that thought they had a winner, and then they didn't. And there was a lot of that going on today, Scott. It is time to get your phone out and call the cops. The Doppler effect, by the way, where it gets louder as it comes towards you and then fades away. Mm-hmm. Did you know what that was called?
I did not know that was called, but I'm going to use that from now on.
There you go. It's the Doppler effect. So, Scott, let's get it rolling, shall we? There was some bad news bears out there for some of our players. And let's start with a game that I actually had, Scott. And I was on the right side of this as I had a side. I didn't have the total, but if you had the San Francisco Giants, Los Angeles Angels under 8, my goodness, you are looking good. Kevin Gausman was absolutely dealing. Ohtani doing the same. It was nutting after 4. They each gave up solo home runs, I think in the 5th or the 6th, and then that was it until the 12th inning, Scott. It was still 1-1 after 11. That's right. They each put up single runs in the 12th, but it wasn't quite that easy because the Angels thought they had a winner, Scott. They had a ground ball. The first baseman playing the infield in. He throws the ball, gets the tag down. Umpire calls him safe. There's your game winner. Walk it off 3-2. Cash those under tickets. Except, as you see at the horse races, hold all tickets, ladies and gentlemen. It went under review, and that call was overturned out at home plate. The Angels do not score another run. The Giants come up in the top of the 13th. Score is 2-2, and the Giants made them pay as they put up 7 runs in the top of the 13th. Angels added 1 in the bottom of the 13th, but by then no one could possibly care as they're trying to beat the traffic out of Anaheim to get back to the Valley, as that game ended up 9-3. If you had the Giants, Angels under 8. It looks like you didn't even have a chance at it. It looks like that was a very, very easy loss for you, but that's not the way it was at all, because you should call the cops.
And the second one we're going to talk about is once again in the College World Series, which we talked about yesterday. And if you had the Stanford Cardinal on the money line against Vanderbilt, you were getting plus money, and you were in good shape, up 5-4 going into the 9th inning. And they not only allowed the tying run, but they also allowed the game-losing run on a walk-off wild pitch. Ouch. They lost 6-5, and to make matters worse, that was an elimination game. So you didn't just lose, but now Stanford's actually going home because their season is over.
Make like the trees and leave, Scott.
Yep.
That was totally unrehearsed, too.
Make like the tree and get out of here.
Let's go back to the major leagues, Scott. If you had the Philadelphia Phillies minus 108 squaring off against the Washington Nationals, you were looking good, buddy. 5-0 after 4. You are up. Still had a little hiccup there in the top of the 5th. You gave up 5 runs to Washington, but not to worry, because you put up 4 in the bottom of the 5th, so you still lead 9-5 after 5 innings. Didn't go well from there, Scott, but you did still, after the smoke had cleared heading into the 9th inning, the Phillies still had a 12-11 lead, and they puked that up as the Washington Nationals got 2, and let's go home, everybody. The Nats have the 13-12 winner, and if you had the Philadelphia Phillies minus 108, you took a heck of a bad beat, and it is time for you to call the caps.
I really can't believe that after tying up all that money on McCutchen and Real Muto and Harper, that they still can't afford a decent bullpen. Isn't that crazy? Bullpen's awful.
Death, taxes, and a terrible Philly pen, Scott. It's things you can always count on.
Yep.
Let's talk about some good news. Let's talk about the people that had those nice, easy winners. You made that bet. You sat back to watch the game. You got the ticket in your hand. It don't take long for you to realize that you have an easy victory. Maybe you turn to the channel. Maybe you watch some Netflix. Maybe you even talk to the family. Maybe you even take a nap. Whatever it is, the time is yours, because you had a rocking chair win.
So the first one on the rocking chair is going to be in baseball with the Houston Astros on the run line at around minus 130, taking on the Orioles. Up 4-0 after the 2nd inning, up 11-0 after the 7th inning, and ended up winning 13-0. We talked about a couple of days ago how Houston should probably destroy Baltimore in this series, and they swept, because, shocker, Houston is good at baseball and Baltimore is not. But Houston really seemed annoyed because they didn't show any resistance, and it's games like those where you kind of wish there was a mercy rule attached to it, because it was ugly and it was over quickly.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. So, Scott, I've got a Houston Astros American League pennant ticket at plus 400. How do you like that?
Can't really say no to it. I mean, you're looking at the odds right now. You got the White Sox, who are the favorites, and we both don't like La Russa, so I expect him to do something dumb. You look at the rest of the White Sox team, it's good, but the bullpen has been a little bit iffy at times, which I do think is concerning. Houston's been really, really good, and I know that people are going to automatically dismiss Houston because of some, cheating allegations from the last couple of years and everything like that. They're still a good baseball team.
Yes, they are.
You shouldn't factor that in.
Correa's still good.
Altuve's been great.
Altuve is still great.
Alvarez, Bregman.
They've got some young, and they've got some great young arms there that have done a very nice job. But yeah, mainly they're just bopping.
Now, I don't think under any circumstance Verlander would come back during the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen. So if you're rooting for a miracle boost to the pitching staff, I don't think you're going to get it. But you still have Greinke, you still have Valdez, or Urquidy was very good yesterday. They still got a couple of good arms in there.
He's married to Kate Upton, and he makes $24 million this year, Scott. I'm thinking he's in no hurry.
That's fair. I am really, really fascinated what Verlander's spin rates are going to be once he comes back.
Oh, what a great question. Shots fired right there, my friend. Hey, let's go back to that Washington-Philadelphia game, because you took it in the shorts if you had the side, but you were in great shape if you had over 9, Scott. We talked about it briefly. They put up 5 runs in the first 4 innings. You're thinking, hey, we're right on track. We're ahead of where we need to be. And then the 5th inning happened, Scott. I previously mentioned it, as the Nats put up 5, the Phillies put up 4. If you're counting along at home, that's 9 runs right there in one inning. You add that to the ones that have already been scored, and your bet is a winner. And that's the best thing about having overs. There's no last-minute heroics. There's nothing that can happen to screw you. Once it goes over, you're never going to be on call the cops, Scott. You have a winner. And if you had that over, you only went over by about 16 runs. You were in good shape. You were certainly in the rocking chair.
And the last one, once again, involves the Blue Jays and the Marlins for about the, 40th day in a row. I don't know if it's still called deja vu, if it's happened for the last, I'd say 3 days as opposed to 2. But
Deja vu all over again.
Point is that if you had the under once again in the Marlins game, it was very easy. You had 4 runs in the first 6 innings, which is decent. You're still on pace for the under, but definitely not as sweat-free as you'd like. And then both bullpens shut the door, and you had 0 combined runs in the final 3 innings. Game ended 3-1. Shocker, Marlins only scored 1 run again, and you ended up cashing a nice easy under ticket in that game.
All right, everybody get your shot glasses ready, because if you had drink every time I lament how good the Marlins pitching staff is and yet they have no offense, it's time for you to drink, because
I got to give Miami a pass quickly because they were against, future Hall of Famer Robbie Ray, right?
That's right. It was I forgot it was.
That was a joke, by the way, but Robbie Ray's a guy that we've given credit to for the entire season.
I forgot it was Robbie Ray Day. When Scott, could Robbie Ray be up there for comeback player of the year?
I would say no, because they tend to gravitate towards comeback stories. It's going to Mancini. I mean, there's no real odds for it. It's 100% going to Mancini.
That's a pretty good call right there. It's much better to give it to the guy that beat cancer. And
Mancini's also had a good year. It's not like the Alex.
Oh yeah, no, he certainly has. No,
it's not like the Alex Smith situation where the guy can put up average at best stats, but because the story was so good, they're going to give it to him anyway. Mancini's earned it. He's
right. Yeah, I agree. And Robbie Ray, the only thing he had to overcome was just wildness. So
he's been great though. I'll give him props and honorable mention.
Is he? Can I use this word, Scott? Is he the ace of that staff? Is it him or Ryu?
See, you said you were going to use the word potential ace. I was thinking of the word tradable because I think that there's a chance that Toronto flips him at the deadline.
You think Toronto is a seller at the deadline?
I think it really depends on where they stack up in the division. And right now you have the Yankees who've picked it up recently, still got Boston and Tampa. They might be 4th going into the trade deadline, and I don't know how many years Ray has left. I don't have that in front of me. But do you think one good year is enough to not try to flip the guy that you acquired for kind of chump change about a year and a half ago? I think it's a good opportunity to flip him and get some prospects.
I think there is no way this team waves the white flag at the trade deadline.
I think it depends on where they are in the standings.
All right, now they're 6 back right now.
And what are they in back of the Yankees for 3rd?
Game and a half.
Game and a half? Okay. So I'm saying let's just say they're around 8 or 9 back by the trade deadline. I think there's a chance they might flip Ray.
8 or 9 back, I guess there's a chance. I guess that's possible.
I'm just throwing out the possibility.
Okay. All right. Well, fair enough. Duly noted. And you can certainly you owe yourself a victory lap if that actually comes to pass. So I know this is something you're excited about, Scott. I'm yet to catch a full case of Euro 2020 fever, although I am interested. I have watched some of the games.
Oh, I had a great time. I lost my play that in 11 minutes yesterday. It was great.
Shout out.
It was fantastic. Thanks a lot, Germany.
We call that a reverse rocking chair?
No, it's a rocking chair. I was just on the other side of it.
Yeah. You still had time to do other stuff. Isn't that ultimately better than losing it in the 90th minute?
I guess. It kind of depends. Anytime you take a team to not allow a goal.
You had them at 0, basically. You had Hungary at 0.
I had Hungary to not score, and my logic was Germany's going to hold the ball the entire game. Hungary had 24% possession, and they scored 2 goals. I don't even know how you accomplish that.
They scored on their first shot on goal. Boom, right.
First shot on goal. They had 3 shots on net the entire game, and 2 of them went in. And Neuer's probably the best goalkeeper in the world. So not a great time there.
It's a nice percentage.
For them, not for me.
All right, so Scott, we are down now to the final 16 teams. Hungary did not make it. Spoiler alert.
I'm going to give them a courtesy shout-out, though. They didn't do me any favors yesterday, but in that region, you tied with France and Germany. Good for you. Yeah. Good for you, Hungary.
Yeah.
You tried.
Get yourself a nice participation trophy. Pick that up on your way out.
I'll get him a plaque. I mean, that's impressive. I mean, you look at those two teams; they're two of the best, I'd say, 4 teams in the world.
Oh, that's
You
certainly what
tried
the
both of them.
that's certainly what the odds say, Scott. So let's talk about the Euro 2020 a little bit. France, Italy, England, and Germany are your favorites. France, excuse me. France is plus 410, Italy plus 650. England and Germany both check in at plus 700. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, Scott. Again, I'm not a soccer expert like yourself, but don't you have to score to be able to win?
I did read that somewhere.
So explain England to me.
The idea is that England and Germany have extremely easy paths to a deep run. Now, they end up playing against each other in the round of 16. So one of them is going to advance, but you look at who else is in the region. It is very, very easy. You're looking at the other teams that are favored in there with France, with Italy, with Spain. None of them are on the same side as Germany and England. So you're looking at the likes of Denmark and Wales and Ukraine and the Netherlands. So the point is, if England or Germany get move past their tough round of 16 matchup, they'll be favored pretty much throughout the next couple of rounds.
You from Wales? No, I'm from normal parents. Thank you.
Was I supposed to laugh there? Sorry, I'd missed that in rehearsal.
It's an old joke. So
it's all about the actual.
Who do you like out of the favorites here?
I was going to say, so the England thing's about the path, but England I don't think is very good.
How many goals have they scored total? 3?
Something like that. They don't give up many goals, but they don't really score many. But right. I think they're going to lose to Germany. Germany's defense has had issues, but I still think they're more talented than England. But looking at every other type of team here, France is the obvious choice because they won the World Cup. They were favored going in, and they haven't really showed any signs. I mean, they ended up beating Germany, which is impressive, tied Portugal yesterday. Italy's been dominant, but then again, their group was significantly easier than France's, so I don't know how much stock I can actually put into their quality performances. I'm still going to go with France because I just think they have too much firepower up top. But if you want to talk about some potential long shots or some teams that might be worth maybe a shot in the dark here, I do think Belgium at 9-1 is worth something. Just because of the fact that Belgium was, I believe, the second favorite going into the event, and now they're 9-1. They're still really good. Like, not much has really changed. You still have Lukaku as your striker, is very good. You still have Mertens, you got Hazard. You still have a very good defensive cast. You got a good midfield. You just have a good all-around team. I think 9-1's a little bit. I think 9-1's a little bit just off based on where the price should be. So I think if you're looking for some value, you can get a pre-tournament team that was around 4-1 or 5-1. Or I'm trying to remember the exact odds on Belgium to start. But the point is that 9-1, I just think is a little bit too. I'd say there's a little bit too much meat on the bone for me to pass on that.
Can you explain why those odds are like that, Scott?
Are you talking about for Belgium?
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with what I said before with England. But the point is that England and Germany are on the easier side of the bracket, and all these other teams are on the impossible side. So the point is your team good enough to handle a gauntlet? And I remember that people talk about England because England kind of had that situation in the World Cup. Now, they ended up losing to Croatia in the semis, but England ended up being the beneficiary of a lot of relatively, let's say, a relatively easier schedule than some other quality teams there in the actual World Cup. And that's been the case this year as well. If they get past Germany, they should have a great chance to make a deep run. But you're looking at the other side. You got Belgium, you got Spain, you got Italy, you got France. You're only going to have one of those teams make it out of there alive. So that's kind of the logic on why you might see some teams have worse odds, or I'd say the odds have gotten greater for them to win. It's because the strength of schedule coming up is brutal.
Well, since Belgium and Portugal square off in the first round, would it make sense just to make a play on those? Belgium at plus 900 or Portugal at plus 1100?
I think you could do that. I mean, I kind of made the same argument with England and Germany. If you want to believe that whoever wins that one's going to have, I don't want to say a cakewalk, but a good opportunity to make a deep run.
Yeah, I mean, who's the tough game there, Scott? Is that going to be Holland? I mean, the Netherlands?
Yeah, I think the Netherlands is probably the toughest team that's not Germany or England in that region. So I think that's going to be a team that you can look at also. If you like the Netherlands at plus 850, I know you mentioned them pre-tournament. I'm still not exactly sold on the Netherlands because their region was relatively easy, just looking at who was actually in their region. So I'm not really sold on the Netherlands at plus 850, but if you want to go by the actual potential path, it makes sense. But if we're talking about Belgium and Portugal, I think Belgium's the better overall team. I know Ronaldo is Ronaldo, so you always have the superstar factor, but I just think Belgium's a better all-around team in comparison to Portugal.
Well, and for the record, I only picked the Netherlands. Do you remember why, Scott?
I was going to say for value, but I forgot the actual reason why you brought it
I
up.
wanted to see hot women in orange dresses.
That's right. Okay.
That's
and then I recommended Sweden, and they actually made it through.
So it'll be good. It'll be
Sweden's the same thing, just in blue dresses.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to get to see them square off against each other. Most likely, as England and Germany probably going to take care of the Swedes before they get to Holland, before they get to the Netherlands. So
yeah, but if you want to talk about easy paths, though, you do have Sweden in that section, 50-1.
Yeah.
Or if you want to get them to come in fourth place or to lose in the semis, in other words, plus 350. Not terrible.
Yeah, and that's the other odds that I wanted to talk about. So, all right, first of all, before we do that, give me your two finalists.
So, for me, I got France. I just think France is too talented. I think they'll find their way through.
Okay.
And as for the other side, I think Germany's going to beat England. And Germany, they didn't do me any favors yesterday, but the defense has to get it together. I still think they're the best team left in that other section. So I'm going to go with France against Germany in the final.
Really stepping out there, huh?
I'm really stepping out, but do you have any other options you like? Because we both aren't exactly sold on England.
No, I know. I you know what? Give me an upset coming out of the France side.
You're going Italy?
No, give me the winner. Give me the Belgium Portugal winner.
Okay.
All right. Give me a little long shot, a little upset there. I know things have pretty well played to the sheet here so far in this tournament, at least as far as the top goes. I know there's a little shuffling at the bottom, but
shout out to Wales for being there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Scott, who isn't there because Wales is?
I'm trying to actually remember who ended up missing out because of Wales.
Okay.
Sorry, there are just a couple of groups, and I'm trying to remember who was in which group because they already moved on. I'm gonna have to search that up because I genuinely I'm blanking on it.
That's all right. You usually have an encyclopedic knowledge for that kind of trivial stuff. So.
There were just so many groups, and that actual group didn't play, and besides Tuesday, so I'm drawing a blank on the actual groups. Sorry.
Cool story, bro. I was like, all right, so I have to make an actual pick.
Well, no. So Wales didn't really change anybody else from getting in because they had an easy region. You had Italy, Wales, Switzerland, and Turkey. So that's why I couldn't think of whose place they took, because that region was kind of a joke.
Yeah, so three teams got in from that region because they all beat up on Turkey, I assume.
Correct, because Turkey scored 1 goal and gave up 8. So
that's not
good.
It
wasn't exactly a great time there for.
It's going to hurt that goal differential tiebreaker
for Turkey. Yeah. Wales got in, which based on the region isn't that surprising, I guess, because Switzerland got in too. But people weren't exactly expecting to still hear Wales' name around for the second weekend.
And you know what? Just to be different, Scott, I'll take the upset there. I'll take Belgium on that side. I'll take Harry Kane and England on the other side.
And Sterling?
And Sterling, yes.
Okay.
I'll do that with Belgium getting the victory because, England just doesn't win those.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right, and so that's as far as the odds go as far as who winning. And real quick, Scott, any value there on making it to the finals? You got a different price as far as making it to the finals goes. I'm trying to see where the value is. Belgium's plus 400, Portugal's plus 700.
I think the value would be taking flyers on the easy section. So you're looking at England and Germany, but I know I mentioned I think Germany makes it to the final.
Right.
If you want to talk about other teams, you might want to take a sprinkle on a Netherlands or one of these teams that might have a Cinderella run in them. Maybe a Denmark, if you want to go for a feel-good story after Eriksson, of course, collapsed in the middle of that match last week and ended up surviving anyway and advancing. If you just want to look at a team that could make a deep run, but you don't think is a realistic shot to actually win the event, then I think you're probably looking at the Germany-England half and just trying to pick whichever team you think can maybe win another 2-3 games.
Okay. All right, good enough. And we'll stay tuned with that. I know the round it begins on Saturday, so it'll be fun to see how that ultimately plays out. And then the quarters, of course, get rolling on July 2nd. And when do we wrap up here, Scott? Somewhere first week in July, roughly.
It's a while, but yeah.
Okay. No, not terrible. Not terrible.
It's not awful, but you still got a decent amount of soccer to go.
All right, fair enough. Switching gears here just a little bit, Scott, as we didn't talk about this yesterday, but I wanted to get to it. Supreme Court handed down a 9-0 decision, which is a rarity in and of itself. And it dealt with compensation from the NCAA. Well, not from the NCAA. It dealt with compensation for NCAA athletes. And it was kind of a narrow decision. I don't want to get in the weeds. We could do an hour and never get out of the weeds on this because there's a lot of moving parts. But this particular case was very narrow. It only dealt with picking up compensation that were deemed educational benefits, like fellowships, stipends, things like that are available to other students. But the writing is kind of on the wall. If you read anything about it at all, Justice Kavanaugh wrote an absolutely blistering opinion. And now it wasn't joined by any other Supreme Court justice, and that's what the NCAA is quick to point out that it's just his opinion. But I can't help but think this might be a little bit of writing on the wall. And I'm going to quote that real quick. Kavanaugh wrote that the NCAA is not above the law. The NCAA model would be flatly illegal in almost any other industry in America, and this current arrangement is suppressing the pay of student athletes who collectively generate billions of dollars in revenue for colleges every year. That's a little brutal, wouldn't you say?
Well, when you throw the B word out there instead of the M, that usually tells you a lot.
That tells you a lot, and he's not wrong either. This is big business, and the NCAA trying to claim it's not a business, it's just an association. It's not going to work. So Scott kind of dovetails with this because on July 1st, 7 states have laws going into effect that regard NIL. And if you don't know that one, it's name, image, and likeness. So basically putting the players on the video games. And
well, that was the O'Bannon.
That was the Ed O'Bannon case, which that case got thrown out. But everything comes full circle because now athletes have to be compensated, at least in those 7 states, for using their likeness, and that includes, of course, any kind of shirts, jerseys, posters, all of that stuff that uses them. And first of all, I mean, I'll ask you, I obviously have an opinion on this, but do you think that's fair?
I think that players should be able to control their own likeness and determine what they should do with it because they're individuals. And I think that if they want to make extra money on the side, because according to the amateur status, you're not letting them make any money, then sure, why do I care if they make extra money selling jerseys or giving autographs?
So 7 states, like I said, have laws going into effect on July 1st. The NCAA is scrambling. They're trying to write something that will give kind of an out for schools that want to pay their players for NIL and that aren't in one of those 7 states. Because first of all, Scott, kind of a funny sidelight here to this story. 4 of those 7 states are in the SEC. I believe it is Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. So
one of those teams doesn't exactly sound like the other, but yeah, we'll roll with it.
Does that give the SEC a competitive advantage? In other words, if the NCAA doesn't get something set up for paying players at the other states
uniformly, yeah.
Yeah, or at least giving them the option. I don't even know if it has to be uniformly, but at least giving them the schools the option to do that and not run afoul of the laws. If they don't do that, does that give the SEC another competitive advantage?
Yeah, but I think the point you can already make is that the SEC was already so far ahead when it comes to recruiting quality athletes for football that I don't know if it really swings the needle that much more than it's already been pretty lopsided as it is. That's what I'm trying to say. But you can make an argument that whether or not the likeness angle could help the SEC, I'm sure the bagman giving them $100,000 in cash usually does the job. So I think that if you're going to be talking about money under the table, whether it's the SEC or not, I think they'll be able to overlook the maybe lack of access to player likeness, stuff like that, if they're still getting paid under the table. And sorry if you don't want to hear this, I'm sure there's a lot of colleges around that are very, very powerful programs that have been paying players, and they've been doing it for a long time.
Yes, Scott, I played college football for 1 year, and I've talked about it before about where I played. It was a Power 5 school. I walked on. I was not in any way, shape, or form a guy that would be an integral part of the team. But my roommate that year was a highly recruited running back, and he was absolutely paid. No question about it. Not even.
And just for reference, what year were you in college?
That would have been 1979.
So, shocker, this has not been around for, I'd say, this is not something new. We'll put it that way.
It didn't just start. If you read Meat on the Hoof, a story about the Texas program under Darrell Royal, a book that was written around 1970 or so, it was going on back then. So this has been going on for freaking ever.
So the player likeness is another way of, trying to give athletes another way to make money, but if the schools are already paying them under the table, I don't know how much of an extra factor it actually has.
Well, maybe you can stop some of that. Maybe if you give them an opportunity to make a quote-unquote honest living while they're in college.
That's what I was thinking, is that it could be an alternative. But the point is, if the athlete's going to get paid one way or another, I think the rest of it's semantics.
Yeah, I agree. And I do you have a problem with college players being paid outright?
No. I think that the argument you could have is that it creates an uneven playing field when it comes to recruitment, because some schools will be able to use resources that other schools don't have. But the argument is they'd probably be going to the school for more exposure anyway. So I don't think it makes much of a difference.
Well, I'm going to put another potential problem out there, and that is how it affects Title IX and where the money gets spent. Because, as you know, football, to a lesser extent basketball, but mainly
generates pretty much all the revenue.
Generates all the revenue that keeps all the other sports afloat. You want to play water polo, you better hope your football team's good, because that's where the money's coming from. So if you've got to spend some money to pay the players, now do you not have enough money to support that rodeo team or your bass fishing team or your tennis team or whatever swimming that got cut a lot of schools?
Now, once again, that impacts some schools more than others, because other schools like Texas A&M end up doing multi-billion-dollar renovations to their football practice facilities. So people kind of just find ways, administrators, to, let's just say, prioritize certain programs or certain sports over others. Well, that's always going to be the case.
I think it's easy to go to boosters and say, hey, I need you to write me a $500,000 check because we need a new $100 million facility so we can compete with Alabama. I think it's a lot harder to go to boosters and go, hey, we need a $50,000 check to make sure we can pay road expenses for the fencing team this year.
Yep.
So it'll be curious to see how it all plays out. It's going to be a very, let's call it a fluid year, Scott. I think it's going to be a very interesting year in college football. The NCAA, I think, has got their wings clipped. They're going to be afraid, even in states that don't have NIL agreements. I think they're going to be very reluctant to enforce the rules that are on the books because they know they're going to end up in court. And with the tenor of the Supreme Court in this last decision, I think court is the last place that the NCAA wants to be.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that regardless of all the specific details that we were referring to and some speculation in there, the general point that we're trying to make is that the entire landscape of college sports, the NCAA has tried to keep in place for who knows how long.
It's over.
It is rapidly deteriorating.
It's over. It's over. It's like if you remember when the Berlin Wall came down that first night, they let people go over the wall, then you start seeing the little chunks come out of it. Pretty soon they're pushing whole sections over. That's the way it's going to be. They have breached the wall, Scott.
Yep.
All right, you ready for the greatest transition of all time? Hey, speaking of court, Scott, USA basketball team got announced today. You like that?
Those players are getting paid.
Those players are getting paid, absolutely. So before we start talking about the roster and the odds involved, let me ask you a quick kind of generic question here. With the commercialization of the Olympics, the way it just costs more and more money to host the Olympics, the advertising tie-ins and everything like that. Is there less of a patriotic duty? Is playing for your country and your flag still a thing here in America?
I think it is, because even though the host countries are paying for it, and that's why those players for those host countries are pretty much required to show up, the point is you still have the option, if you're from another country, to just say, I don't want to go. So I do think that there is some type of loyalty to it, because we're talking about that they're getting paid. I mean, you're comparing that to the $30+ million contracts they're getting in the NBA, and they're potentially risking injury to partake in this type of, I don't want to say exhibition, but you know what I mean. The actual risk reward is not really there when it comes to evaluating just monetarily whether or not NBA players should be participating in the Olympics or not. So I do think there's national pride involved, because Durant, besides trying to win a gold medal, is it really worth jeopardizing the next $200 million contract he's going to get? Probably not.
Yeah, that's what I'm just looking, because, Durant has one. Durant won a gold in 2016.
But Durant's got 1 year left in his contract, and then he's a free agent again.
As did Draymond Green. The rest of these guys have never won a gold medal. So let me ask you this: since Durant has one, what's he doing?
Well, that's what I mentioned the other day. We originally brought up Team USA, and I talked about how I thought Harden would end up withdrawing, which he did. I was actually on fire, if you go back to that take. I actually had a lot of pretty accurate predictions there. But I said that my logic was LeBron's not going to be there, and I think this is Durant's chance to anchor a team, to say, this is going to be a legacy of mine. I'm going to be the best player, the captain on an Olympic winning, gold medal winning team. And I think that is going to pay dividends long term. Now, Durant is never going to catch LeBron in terms of just all-time, I'd say, accolades and everything like that. But being the best player on a gold medal team, that looks pretty good in a resume, because that's something a lot of players can't say that they have.
Now, Scott, back in the day, they used to save a spot for one college player.
Yep.
Do you know who it was on the original Dream Team?
It was Leitner, wasn't it?
Correct. Very good. So they don't do that anymore. But if they were, who would it be?
Out of college players that are
going to be playing in the upcoming college, that weren't just drafted, that will be playing in the upcoming college season. Who do you like? Timmy?
I don't even know, because half of the great freshmen leave every year.
Yeah, I know. It makes
that's a very good question. I don't really know.
Well, the correct answer is Timmy.
That's probably true.
Well, and the reason I say that, other than getting a chance to do that impression, which I never pass up, is the fact that they're weak at the five, Scott.
I was going to say that he actually stayed in school for more than 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely true. But as far as the center goes, and we'll hit the roster here real quick. So we talked about Durant. It's Lillard, Booker, Jason Tatum, Bradley Beal, Middleton, Levine, Bam Adebayo, Draymond Green, Holiday, Love. Kevin Love. I'm sorry, Kevin Love.
That was my reaction. Like, Kevin, I remember seeing the news story, and they're talking about, Durant's going to go, and you're going to have Harden go. Harden was going at the time. Lillard's going to go. Booker's going to go. Oh, yeah, and Kevin Love committed. I'm like, wait a second. Hang on. Wait, is it 2012? Like, what's happening right now?
So are we counting on Kevin Love to stay healthy for 2 weeks?
See, I'm afraid.
The last time that happened.
See, I'm afraid for Kevin Love, because he's going to be showing up at the Olympics, and he might have forgotten what winning is like. I don't know how he's going to handle it.
Youch. Jeremy Grant is the last one. So, Scott, your only fives on that squad is Adebayo. He's the only true center. And then you've got Draymond Green.
You got Draymond Green with a question mark. You got Durant with a question mark. And Kevin Love with a question mark, because they're all power forwards, kind of. But with the NBA going smaller nowadays, you could put Durant in a stretch 5 spot. And that's what they're going to end up doing. Adebayo is going to play center the majority of the time, but I do think you'll see lineups where they're really just making it up as they go, because we're going to talk about it as a segue. Does it matter? Who's going to beat this team?
Well, that's the thing. And we do have odds on the USA, and then we've got odds on some other teams. Now, not everybody is qualified. The field isn't set.
That's a call to the cops if you bet on a team that doesn't even qualify for the Olympics.
That's not good.
That's not good at all.
So you and I talked, day before yesterday, about what we thought the odds would be?
I said if it was anything lower than minus 500, I would take Team USA. And you said good luck trying to get it. What are the odds on Team USA?
Minus 305.
That's what I thought.
That's a bargain.
I think it's a bargain.
Load up. You think Louisiana's voting Republican? Yeah, well, you should bet it then. You think USA is winning this? Yeah, I do.
I thought 5-1 was reasonable, especially since Jokic decided to not play for Serbia. So I thought Serbia was going to have a potential shot, but without the MVP playing for them, I got to cancel Serbia off. No offense to Boban. I love Boban, but I don't think he's going to do much against the pick and rolls the Nets are going to not the Nets, but the Team USA is going to run. But you're looking at Spain and these other teams. I heard Pau Gasol might make the Spain roster.
Easy.
So, no, I'm just saying. So, you're looking at minus 305. I don't know who's going to beat this team.
No, I mean, and you're in a position where nobody other than the U.S. is better than 8-1. So you are in a position where you could take like the next 7 teams, and if anybody but the USA wins, you're guaranteed a profit.
And you might be nervous, saying, "Well, Serbia, maybe Serbia or Spain can do something." Are we sure they're going to even make it to the final?
Spain to the final?
No, but the point is that if we're talking about every other team is 8-1 or higher, there's no guarantee those other teams are going to make it into the championship game.
No, there's no guarantee at all. None.
USA is, I don't want to say a lock to make it to the title game, but they should be. And then worst case is they'll be laying, like 15 in the title game? Yeah, hedge plus 1,400 on Greece.
Sure.
I don't know. You can hedge in the title game if you want to.
Are both Antetokounmpos playing for Greece?
I have to assume yes. I'm pretty sure Giannis committed. Then again, if they potentially make it to the finals and they end up potentially going to 7 games, you have about a 2-day turnaround. So I don't know if the players will stay committed to the national team, depending on how deep the run's going to be. However, if Trae Young scores 48 points in the next 3 games, I don't think they have to worry about that anymore. But I do think that they're going to play. The other Antetokounmpo we know isn't very good. I mean, come on.
All right. I'm just saying he's better than your brother.
That is, I don't have one, so I don't have a brother. So you're looking at for Greece.
He'd be better than him.
For Greece, you got Giannis and Papa Nicolau. Is that pretty much it?
I don't know who that is.
The Kings took this Greek center with like the 13th.
Wasn't that the kid from Vegas Vacation?
Possibly not the same guy, but anyway.
Sorry.
Point is that the Kings took some Greek center, like the 13th pick a couple of years ago. I don't think he ever played in the NBA, but Papa Nicolau is a name that I just remember.
Well,
an all-time bad draft because he literally never played in the NBA.
Outstanding. All right, so we'll keep an eye on that. I'm sure we'll talk about more as the field becomes a little more sharper into focus. So, Scott,
but I think we'd agree though that you can just to briefly wrap it up. USA, they're pretty good at basketball. These other countries, they got their work cut out for them.
Yeah, 7th place in their last international tournament, notwithstanding.
I'm assuming that some people were members of that team, though, weren't they?
Yes, there were some people that were members of that team. You're right.
So I'm assuming that they're going to be really annoyed. I'll tell you that much. I don't know if you need a motivation angle for a gold medal thing. But
I know the coach that just steered him to that 7th place win just got hired as the new coach for Boston. So congratulations.
Just saying. But the players loved them. They came in 7th place, but they had a great time.
Great time.
But I'm just saying, you might not talk about motivation. 7th place, that might be stuck in the memory of some of these guys.
We're number 7. Number 7.
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix Suns, LA Clippers tonight, Scott. Moving back to LA, Suns with the 2-zip lead. Could have been 1-1 pretty easily if Paul George would have made a couple free throws. They'd have been shooting for the tie instead of shooting for the win. So that didn't work out. But now we move back home. Clippers home dog here, Scott. Opened up at 1, pretty much sits there. There's been a little bit of money coming in on the Suns. Starting to creep to 1.5. You know why? You know who's coming back?
Top 5 point guard of all time.
Bob Cousy's coming back?
Not quite.
CP3.
Oh, Chris Paul. Yeah, top 5 point guard of all time. Yeah, he's coming back.
Is he 48 now? 49?
And he still plays like he's 25.
Does he? Scott?
Yeah, you looked at him in the Nuggets series. He looked like it was 2007.
LeBron brushed his shoulder. He's out for 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little overdramatic, but
he looked pretty good in the series after that. But sure,
actually he didn't.
In the Nuggets series, he was phenomenal.
Chris
Paul?
You talk about, but once the shoulder got better,
Yeah,
right?
the Lakers series, he was awful. The Nuggets series, the series after, he was unbelievable.
So you think the shoulder's completely healed? Is that kind of a
Yeah.
bonus of being out for a week with COVID?
I think that the shoulder was healed in the Denver series because he played like it, and I think that he should play well, but I do question if there's going to be any side effects from COVID. We have seen some athletes struggle immediately coming back. Now, his relatively fast return makes it seem like there weren't many symptoms being involved, which I think is definitely a good sign. But the line movement, we can agree, is solely based on Chris Paul coming back. There's no other reason why money, I think, would be pouring in on the Suns.
Let me ask you, how much of a boost does he really give? Because Campaign had 29, 9 assists.
I think it's all depth related. I think that the idea is that you're looking at the Clippers point guard situation. It's not pretty. Reggie Jackson has been very good in the playoffs. Rondo has been, well, not. And Beverly's actually been pretty good for the first 2 games.
Rondo's been better.
He's been better, but the point is that now instead of relying solely on Cameron Payne and a little bit of Etuan Moore, you got Chris Paul and Cameron Payne there. That's a hell of a 1-2 punch for the Clippers backcourt to deal with.
Okay.
What do you think? I think it's solely just giving another just weapon for the Clippers to worry about from a backcourt perspective, and the Clippers backcourt just isn't very good.
Well, I've got to play for my.
No, not about the actual game. I just mean the impact Chris Paul has there. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Clippers backcourt has just a decent amount of holes in it.
I'm of the opinion that it's not going to have as much of an effect as gamblers think it's going to. That's what I have to say about that. We'll see.
I tend to agree with you, but then again, you might make the argument the Suns might just be the better team anyway. But and the way that I'm looking at it is that Chris Paul, if you're assuming he's going to play a full minute load, which is a question mark, I don't know if he's going to play a full 36. He might end up playing 32, something like that, but I think he'll get over 30. You're just looking at Phoenix and all the weapons they have, and the Clippers with Paul George, who besides the missed free throws was really good in that game. Besides Paul George and Kennard and Reggie Jackson, did they really have much else? I'm just not really sold, but I got to stick to my guns. I said bet Phoenix to win game 2, and then bet the Clippers to win the series. I said that 2 days ago. I got to stick with it. So I'll take the Clippers at home.
Plus 500, buddy. Got them right where
interested. They're the kings of the 0-2 comeback.
Got them right where you want them. Down
right
0-2. All right. And by the way, beat a pretty good line move on the Hawks. They're now plus 170.
My favorite play in the Suns game, though, is the under. Chris Paul coming back just means a slower pace. I like the under in that one.
I would agree with that. This is a, I think Ty Lue made a pretty good decision last time where he decided to put the guys out on the perimeter and stop cheating in the paint and just let Ayton do his thing against Zubac.
Yeah.
Because Ayton had a very good game.
Booker was not good.
But they shot 20% from downtown.
Yeah, Booker was terrible.
Yeah, not good at all. They harassed him all night long. So we'll see how that ends up going. So you and I both like the under there, and you like the Clippers.
I'm definitely a lot, I'd say, more opinionated about the under than I am about the side, but yes.
Think Clippers plus 500 is a good play?
I think it's worth a shot. If you think they're going to end up winning game 3 and you think that, once again, there's a chance Kawhi comes back, we both think he's not coming back. But if you think he's going to.
It's not coming back.
He's not. But if you're talking about a series price now, if you think he's going to, then you're getting value on its own.
I would say if you want to hold out hope, there would be a slim possibility game 5.
I say 15% chance.
That's probably close to right. I'd probably put it 4-1. So yeah, 20%.
Okay.
All right, very good. Well, let's move on to the world of baseball, Scott. Kind of weird. We got a little baseball time. How about that?
How much time do we have for baseball this time around?
We've got about 7 minutes, give or take.
So we'll chop that in half with a normal 2, and we got 5 minutes to go.
It's not bad.
That's a joke. We can talk baseball. Let's do it.
Couple of getaway games. If you wanted to play the Royals, Yankees, or A's, Rangers, you're out of luck because this will air in most places after those games have gotten underway. But everything else is a night game. Scott, let's talk about the play that we pretty much is just a standard part of our rocking chair winners, and that's the Miami under. They send Poteet to the mound today against Joe Ross for the Washington Nationals.
Ross might actually challenge just how good this Marlins under trend is, because he has not been good.
He's not good. He's not good at all.
Remember when he was great for like the first 4 starts of the year?
Good times.
Good times.
Good times indeed. You like this Poteet kid?
I think he's got some potential, like most Marlins pitchers. The issue that I just have with this spot is that the Nationals have actually been playing some decent ball lately. They ended up having a nice rallying win against the Phillies yesterday. You look at the record, they're 35-36.
Yep.
So they've actually kind of been respectable. They've won 4 in a row. They're in second place. Miami's completely fallen apart, but that's because they can't score.
Well, and they've won 10 of their last 11. They won 3 straight 10 of their last 11. So
yeah, you look at the head-to-head. Washington has won each of the first 3 meetings, and Miami in all 3 of those games have scored 2 runs or less. So fun times, but I actually see a potential pitching change. I see Lester might be pitching instead of Ross tomorrow.
Hold all tickets.
According to ESPN, it says that Lester might be on the mound. So with Lester on the mound, I like the Nationals in the spot.
Okay.
Ross was the one thing scaring me off on this, but if Lester's going to pitch, pretty much the same numbers as Petit, I'll go with the Nationals.
So now you're getting a nice price. You're getting the Nats, like you said, a team that's really hot, Scott. You're getting the Nats minus 115. Although I have to say, 8 of their last 11 have come in on the under. So I'm not afraid of a Miami under there. I'm gonna give me the under 8.5 while you can still get it. We're starting to see 8 pop up at DraftKings. We're starting to get juiced on the 8.5. So if you can still get it, take that 8.5.
Yeah, sounds about right.
What else you got?
Well, looking at the rest of the card, I'm looking at this matchup here between Houston and Detroit. We got Houston, which we mentioned in the rocking chair for the run line. Houston's won, 10 in a row now?
Yes, I believe that is correct.
And you got Garcia against Urena on the mound. They're around minus 200 on the money line, which makes sense because Detroit record-wise has not been great, but they have been better lately. Detroit going on a bit of a run lately. But if you want to look at the run line here, Houston is around minus 130 on the run line. You tempted by that at all?
Yeah, I think you have to be. Urena has not been good at home. He has not been good over his last 3. He has been fairly well lit up. This is a Tigers team that what's the best we can say about them? They're better than we thought they'd be.
They're surprisingly not in the dumpster.
Yeah. Well, for a while, they were not in last place.
They don't live in the dumpster. They were just dumpster diving for a little bit.
Dumpster diving for a little while. Urena, like I said, pretty good season, but he's definitely lost his last 3 in fine style.
Well, the numbers overall are awful, but he had a stretch for about a month to start the year where he was actually decent.
He did. He absolutely did. But now he's given up 17 earned runs in his last 11 innings.
I think I'm just looking at Houston team total in this.
It's going to be 6.5.
I don't know if that should even scare me at this point. Houston
I
just
agree.
walks in and scores 7 no matter who they face.
Well, we did it the other day about how many games they'd scored. I think it was the other day it was 12 of 15. So I think they've gone 1-1 since then where they've scored 6 or more. So I'm going to say, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's going to be 13 of their last 17. They've scored 6 or better.
Could be. Now, I do want to ask you just in general, Detroit did sweep Houston earlier this season in Houston. That was a long time ago. Do you think any of that carries over just mentally?
Not a bit.
I'm just bringing it up because I do think it's interesting food for thought.
You're talking about from a revenge factor or something like that?
They might just remember losing in their own home stadium 3 times.
Maybe.
Maybe to not overlook an opponent kind of thing.
It depends on how big of a-holes that Detroit was. If they were talking smack or something like that, then maybe.
Yeah, I was just curious.
If they were, I would say it would all depend on the attitude. If they were professionals and they went out there and just did their thing and reeled off 3 wins, then no, I don't think it's a big deal. If they talk smack, which if you're the Tigers, stop. Don't do that. That's not good.
Well, you had Hinch as the former manager. I'm sure they were talking some smack in that situation.
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it at all. Yeah,
I like Houston. I like Houston too. Though Urena's just been awful lately.
I'm just trying to see if I can make sure that I'm right on the total there.
I see around 10, give or take.
I'm looking at the.
Yeah, but anyway, while you search that up, Garcia's been good. People didn't really know who this guy was. Kind of a youngster, 5-4, 2.82 ERA, 1.07 WHIP. He's been pretty sharp, and Detroit has been better. But there's a difference between playing the struggling Cardinals and the struggling Angels in comparison to facing off against the Astros, who are on fire right now.
Scott, you can get. By the way, you can get the Astros over 5.5. It is 5.5, 3.5, despite the disparity in odds.
I'm curious what the juice is there at 5.5.
Minus 115, man.
That's a good deal for me.
Yeah. Sign up for that. By the way, that's going to be our silver medal play for Bet the Farm. We always like to give you what the one that we discarded, and I think we couldn't decide whether we like the run line or the over 5.5, but we're paying less juice on over 5.5. I think that gets there.
Well, I'm assuming with the total being at 10.5 or so, there's probably a decent amount of wind blowing out in Comerica tomorrow or on Thursday.
You would think so, yes.
In Comerica with about a 10 plus total, I think there's some wind blown out.
Yeah, it has to be for sure. Of course, the Astros are involved too. So
yeah, that too.
I think they tee off on Urania. I think my prediction, Scott, when we do this show 24 hours from now, that is on the rocking chair wins the Astros team total over 5.5. Astros run line.
I'm gonna guess 9-2.
That sounds about right. And if you want to play alternative run lines, that's a great place to do it. If you want to, if you could play Astros -4 plus 225. I don't hate that. -3.5 plus 175. I think somewhere in that neighborhood it deserves a sniff. So. All right, Scott. Well, we have reached that point in our show where we do our thing. We try to put our heads together, come up with the very best play that we can. We know people that listen to the show. They just want to hear what our best play of the day is. If you had to put it all on one, if you had to put all your chips in the middle, this would be it, Scott. It is time once again for Bet the Farm. Yeah, get on out of here now. Get on out of here, Bessie. All right, Scott, we've cleared the decks. The cows are gone. You and I are going to stick our toe in the hockey world, Scott, as the Montreal Canadiens look to close it out against the Vegas Golden Knights at home there in Montreal. They are plus 130 underdogs, Scott, and we like the Canadiens to get it done. Now, part of this is the fact that we've been ride or die with this team since this series started, and nothing has happened to change our minds. In fact, like I said, they have the series lead. Canadians have won 3 of their first 5, obviously, with a 3-2 lead. They have not allowed a power play goal in the past 12 games. They are 28 for 28 on the PK kill in that period, in that span of time, Scott. That's not too shabby.
Definitely not. And Vegas has also struggled lately.
That's like playing the Islanders every game with those kind of power play stats.
Pretty much. 5-on-3, who cares? Scoring's overrated.
Vegas has not been able to get it done against this Montreal defense. They've scored less than 3 goals in each of their last 4. And part of that stems from the Vegas forwards, Scott. They have scored a combined 3 goals in this series. So let's do it. Let's take the Montreal Canadiens plus 130 on Bet the Farm. And that is going to do it for us today, guys. We appreciate you stopping by. Thanks for joining us. And tell your friends we do it every day. And we will see you tomorrow on Winners and Whiners Radio. Take care, everybody.